What would do if you wake up next to the person you vowed to spend your life with? The one who promised to protect you, love you, and build a future with you. But what if that same person was secretly plotting your death? Not once, but twice. This isn't a movie script. It's a chilling true crime story of greed, betrayal, and survival. In this true crime series, we're diving into the shocking case of a man who tried to orchestrate his wife's murder on 2 separate occasions. We'll uncover how he almost got away with it, the red flags everyone missed, and the investigation that finally exposed him for who he really was. By the end of this story, you'll understand how a carefully crafted marriage turned into a deadly trap, and how one woman's will to live and a determined team of investigators stopped him from succeeding. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button now. Stay updated on shocking true crimes that rarely see the light of day. Stick with us till the end as we uncover another chilling mystery. Our story begins in the quiet suburbs of Colorado Springs, Colorado, in the early 2000s. On the surface, James and Melissa Carter were the definition of a perfect couple. James was a tall, clean-cut, charismatic man in his late 30s, a small business owner who was well-liked in his community. Melissa, 34, was warm, intelligent, and deeply family-oriented. She worked as a school administrator and was known for her kindness and dedication to students. Together, they seemed picture-perfect, hosting neighborhood barbecues, attending church every Sunday, and raising their 2 children in what looked like a stable, loving home. But behind closed doors, things were far from perfect. James was struggling financially. His once successful contracting business had collapsed after the 2008 housing crisis, leaving him in debt. Melissa, meanwhile, had recently taken out a life insurance policy worth nearly $500,000. To James, drowning in bills and feeling his reputation slip, Melissa's policy began to look less like protection and more like an opportunity. James's financial troubles created a dangerous obsession. Instead of cutting back or finding new work, he began fantasizing about an escape route, an escape that would involve his wife's death. Melissa had no idea. She thought they were working through their challenges like any couple. But James was already laying the groundwork for his first attempt. He told Melissa he wanted to plan a getaway, a romantic hiking trip in the Rocky Mountains. To Melissa, it sounded like the perfect chance to reconnect. To James, it was a perfect setting for an accident. The day of the trip started normally. Melissa packed snacks, water, and her favorite hiking shoes. James was unusually cheerful, masking his intentions behind small talk and smiles. As they hiked deeper into the mountains, Melissa noticed James steering her towards steep cliffs and narrow paths. He insisted on taking photos near dangerous ledges, urging her to stand closer to the edge. At one point, Melissa slipped on loose gravel, but managed to regain her balance. She laughed nervously, unaware that James had subtly tried to nudge her closer to a fall. Later, as they crossed a rocky ridge, James reached for her hand. Only this time, his grip wasn't steady. Melissa slipped again, bruising her leg, but miraculously avoided a fatal drop. James quickly disguised his frustration as concern, fussing over her injury and insisting they turn back. To Melissa, it felt like a clumsy accident. To James, it was failure. When they returned home, James spun the story to friends and family. "Melissa's always been a little clumsy," he joked, painting the trip as a light-hearted misadventure. No one suspected that he had just attempted to end her life. But Melissa couldn't shake a strange feeling. Something about James's insistence on risky photo spots didn't sit right. Still, she pushed the thought aside, convincing herself she was just being paranoid. She had no way of knowing that her husband wasn't done. In fact, surviving that trip only pushed James to plan more carefully, more coldly. He had failed once, but he was determined to succeed the second time. She thought the first accident was behind them, just bad luck on a mountain trail. But her husband wasn't done. In fact, surviving his first attempt only made him colder, smarter, and more determined. And his next plan would be far deadlier. Earlier, we uncovered how James Carter tried to stage a deadly accident on a mountain's wife, Melissa, but failed. Now, in part 2, we'll walk through the second attempt, how investigators began piecing together suspicious details, and the shocking unraveling of his carefully crafted lies. After the hiking trip, Melissa carried on with life. She was recovering from a bruised leg and still working full-time at the school. To outsiders, the Carters were fine. But within the marriage, Melissa noticed changes. James had grown distant, less affectionate, and more controlling about money. He began asking questions about her life insurance policy, how much it covered, when it renewed, and even whether she thought of increasing it just in case. Melissa brushed it off as odd curiosity, but in reality, James was recalculating his next move. Meanwhile, the couple's friends started noticing cracks. Melissa confided to her sister that James had been short-tempered and different since the trip, but no one suspected the truth. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button now. Stay updated on shocking true crimes that rarely see the light of day. Stick with us till the end as we uncover another chilling mystery. James's second plan came in the form of a date night. He told Melissa he wanted to make it up to her after the hiking accident, promising dinner in Denver followed by a scenic late-night drive. Melissa, always hopeful, agreed. She thought maybe he was trying to reconnect. But James had already tampered with the car. He'd loosened brake lines and studded the stretch of highway that ran alongside a deep canyon. His plan was chillingly simple: drive late at night, on winding roads, and wait for the brakes to fail. The evening started off well. Dinner, wine, laughter. James turned on the charm, making Melissa feel secure. As they drove back, the road grew darker, emptier, and more dangerous. Melissa began to feel uneasy. James was driving faster than usual, and when she told him to slow down, he brushed her off. Moments later, as they descended a steep curve, the brakes gave out. Melissa screamed as a car swerved violently. James cursed, pretending to fight for control. Somehow, by sheer luck, Melissa grabbed the emergency brake and yanked it hard enough to grind the car to a halt before the cliff edge. Her hands shook, her heart raced, but they were alive. To James, it was strike two. To Melissa, it felt like another terrifying accident. This time, though, investigators took notice. When the car was towed, a mechanic found clear evidence of tampering. Loose brake lines were the result of wear and tear. They had been deliberately cut. Melissa was shocked. She remembered James handling the car the day before their trip, saying he wanted to check the tires. Suddenly, the hiking accident didn't feel so random anymore. Detectives quietly opened an investigation, interviewing friends, family, and even Melissa herself. The life insurance policy became a central focus, as did James's growing financial debt. Neighbors described James as friendly but odd, and some recalled him making dark jokes about how expensive wives could ruin a man. Police dug deeper. They uncovered internet searches from James's laptop, how to cut brake lines undetected, pushing someone off a cliff accident, and chillingly, how much insurance money a spouse dies. Melissa was confronted with a horrifying reality. Her husband wasn't unlucky. He was trying to kill her. Twice. Detectives began building a case, but they knew they needed more. Suspicion wasn't enough for conviction. They had to prove intent, motive, and opportunity. So, they placed James under surveillance. They monitored his calls, his online activity, and even had undercover officers pose as mechanics to gather his reactions when he asked about the brake damage. James's arrogance became his downfall. He openly complained that the stupid car ruined his plans, slipping up in ways that suggested the accident wasn't so accidental. The case reached its peak when Melissa, terrified but brave, agreed to cooperate with investigators. She wore a wire during a tense conversation with James at home. In that recorded exchange, James admitted to the brake tampering in vague but incriminating language. If it had worked the way it was supposed to, we wouldn't be in this mess. That was the break investigators needed. Suddenly, the dots connected. The hiking trip, the car brakes, the financial motive. The picture was clear. James Carter had plotted not one, but two attempts to kill his wife. As James was taken into custody, the community erupted in shock. How could a man who looked so normal, who smiled at neighbors and hosted church dinners, secretly be a two-time would-be killer? Soon, we'll head into the courtroom. When Melissa bravely faced her husband, prosecutors revealed chilling details, and a jury decided whether James Carter would ever walk free again. A wife betrayed, a community stunned, and a husband on trial for plotting not one, but two separate murder attempts. The evidence was damning, but would a jury believe that a man could be capable of planning his own wife's death twice? Earlier, we uncovered the accidental hiking trip that nearly ended Melissa Carter's life. We also exposed the sabotaged brakes, the investigation, and the damning wire recordings. Now we'll dive into the dramatic courtroom battle, the emotional climax of Melissa's testimony, and the shocking outcome that left lingering questions about how far James was really willing to go. By late 2010, James Carter was officially charged with 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder, alongside charges of insurance fraud and reckless endangerment. His trial would take place in El Paso County Court, Colorado, and from day one, the case drew intense public attention. Reporters filled the gallery. True crime followers debated every detail online. How could a man who lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood be accused of something so sinister? For Melissa, walking into court wasn't just about justice. It was about survival. Facing James again, seeing the man she once trusted sitting at the defense table, was like reliving every betrayal at once. To keep up with this series and even more interesting true crime stories that never came to light until now, hit the red subscribe button. Now back to the story. The prosecution wasted no time. They laid out a timeline of James's desperation, financial collapse, mounting debts, and a conveniently timed life insurance policy on Melissa's life. They played the chilling recording where James admitted the brakes should have worked. They called mechanics to testify that the damage was deliberate. They showed search history logs of him Googling ways to stage accidents. Melissa herself took the stand. Her voice shook as she described the hiking trip, the way James urged her closer to the cliff, the slip, and the look on his face when she didn't fall. Then she relived the night of the brake failure, recounting the terror of nearly plummeting to her death. The courtroom was silent. Jurors leaned forward, visibly moved by her courage. The defense, however, painted a different picture. They argued that the mountain slip was just a coincidence, a simple accident. They claimed the brakes failed due to poor maintenance, not sabotage. And as for the internet searches, they said James was curious after watching crime shows. But the evidence against him was stacking too high. While the trial played out, the community around Colorado Springs was shaken. Neighbors who once trusted James now avoided mentioning his name. Parents at Melissa's school sent her letters of support, praising her bravery for testifying. Still, not everyone believed the case was so clear-cut. Some whispered that maybe the state was pushing too hard, that 2 accidents didn't necessarily equal attempted murder. Others wondered, if James had succeeded, would anyone have ever known? After weeks of testimony, cross-examinations, and emotional recounting, the jury was sent to deliberate. Hours stretched into a full day. Melissa sat in the front row, her sister's hand gripping Hayes, her heart racing with every passing minute. Finally, the jury returned. The courtroom fell silent as the 4 persons stood. On the charge of attempted first-degree murder, guilty. On the charge of attempted first-degree murder, second count, guilty. On the charges of insurance fraud and reckless endangerment, guilty. Melissa wept quietly. James sat motionless, his jaw tight, eyes locked on the table in front of him. For the first time, the mask of control slipped. The judge handed down a sentence of 2 consecutive life terms without parole. James Carter would spend the rest of his life behind bars. Even with justice served, questions lingered. Had James planned other ways to kill Melissa that investigators never uncovered? What about the times he pressured her into hiking in dangerous weather, or the strange way he insisted she check the attic insulation near live wires? Some investigators believed the 2 uncovered attempts were only part of a larger pattern, that James had been experimenting with ways to stage the perfect accident long before he was caught. For Melissa, those questions became haunting what ifs. She admitted later in interviews that she replayed years of their marriage in her mind, wondering if every close call had been something more sinister. Today, Melissa lives a very different life. She moved away from Colorado Springs, started therapy, and began speaking publicly about domestic betrayal and financial abuse. She says her survival is proof that even in the darkest situations, courage and persistence can lead to justice. The case became a warning not just about financial greed, but about the dangers that can exist behind closed doors. Friends, family, and even communities can miss the red flags until it's almost too late. So, what do you think? Was James Carter driven purely by money, or was there something darker, an obsession with control, a deep-seated resentment, maybe even a hidden history no one uncovered? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story sent chills down your spine, don't walk away. Subscribe now and hit the bell. Join us as we uncover the hidden truths behind shocking crimes like this one, and see for yourself how appearances can be deadly deceiving.